So much. Good morning. Ooh, y'all so quiet. We'll try again. Did everybody have coffee? Okay, we're gonna try one more time. Now, let me tell you why I do this. Everybody who knows me knows I'm anxious. And so you help me be less anxious. You help me level set with good energy. All right, that's that song, Good Energy. I'm not gonna start singing, but, all right, so I'm gonna try again. And when you say it back, say it in the first language you ever learned. How about that? Make it a little interesting, okay? All right, so we're gonna hear all these beautiful different languages, okay? You ready? I'm gonna say good morning, and then you're gonna say it back in the first language you ever learned. Good morning. Good morning. Ooh, I love it, thank you. All right, so we'll get started. Okay, this is Miha, Morgann, and we're gonna have a little chit chat. So I'm gonna start by asking Morgann a bunch of questions and do my motherly duty to embarrass her as much as possible in the process. But Morgann, I'm having issues here. Let's start with, like, one of the things that I do in my work is I talk about one of my mantras, and that mantra is love, light, science. Trademarked, yes it is. And I can talk a little bit more about what that means later, but I really want to kind of start with the theme of love. And we don't talk a lot about love in the work that we do. I'm a classically trained psychologist, so you know we definitely don't talk about that when we're in training and what we do in psychology, but it's an important part of the work. So I just want to ask Morgann a couple questions, and then Morgann's going to ask me a few, and then we're going to let you all get on with your day. So we're really happy to be here supporting Salome's conference. She's an incredible human being. I know a lot about her story. She's very inspiring to me, and I'm just really grateful that she gave us an opportunity to sit up here and chat. So Morgann, let's start with this concept of love. One of the things that's really important to me in the work that I do with young people is I'm always talking about every young person, right? And some of my friends are out here, Jorge, Mahmoud, plenty of folks. And y'all have heard me say many times, every young person deserves the opportunity to feel seen, to feel heard, and so we don't stay with ableist language, which a young person taught me, because everybody cannot see and everybody cannot hear, to feel valued, right? And so at a nonprofit I run called the AAKOMA Project, that's what we're all about. And so Morgann, let me ask, with this idea of young people feeling seen, heard, and valued, particularly when we think about young people who often don't feel seen, heard, and valued, young people of color. And that's who we prioritize at the AAKOMA Project. All of our young people matter. Our goal at AAKOMA is to really try to center the ones who don't often feel or are not made to feel that they matter. So can you talk a little bit about, as a young woman of color, at the most illustrious university in the United States, HU, you know, what does mental health mean to you as a young woman of color?
Sure, so I'm gonna do something weird because we always have to do this at Howard. I'm going to do my Howard intro. Hi everyone, my name is Breland-Noble. I'm a sophomore marketing major from Northern Virginia, and I currently am at Howard University in their School of Business. So one of the things that was really important to me, especially when we're talking about love and feeling valued and seen and heard, was making a decision about college. And I, like so many other young people my age, have grown up in environments and situations where I wasn't always seen. I didn't see people who looked like me. I didn't see many figures who could embody what I wanted to do in my environment. So choosing a college environment that would allow for me to grow and kind of be around people who looked like me, shared the same values, had everything that they wanted, was really important. So that's why I chose Howard, and being there, having the ability to meet so many people from Black and brown backgrounds who come from all different types of walks of life has really kind of shaped that, especially being in the School of Business. One of the things that they talk about a lot, and it's a joke on campus, that it's a cult. It's a good cult. It's a good cult, I swear. But they talk about kind of growing our skills and helping us feel the power to embrace any environment that we walk into, because a lot of the settings that we're trying to embrace in the business world are not reflective of who we are, and they do not have a lot of people in positions that we're trying to aim for. So they really try and ingrain things like saying your Howard intro so you have confidence to talk about yourself and to the fullest extent, and being open and talking about what your aspirations are, and being able to walk into any room and not worry about about, well, yeah, I may be the only one, but how can I take this and kind of turn it into a positive? So you really kind of get this concept of self-love very early, because they kind of take you from whatever environment you've come from, whether it's something where not everyone looks like you to something where everyone does, and they kind of help you shape your self-image first, which really helps kind of harvest the rest of those relationships.
I love that. Thank you, Morgan. One of the things that stands out to me as you describe that is they have this great ceremony at Howard University. We didn't have it when I also went to Howard. When I was an undergrad, they call it the pinning ceremony. And I'll tell you why it's relevant for what we do, what you all do every day. As I said, everyone deserves the opportunity to feel seen, heard, and valued. Morgan has just described how the academic institution that she chose actively does things to encourage that for our young people. And the pinning ceremony is another example of that. So long story short, they bring literally every first-year student at the university. It was a sea of young people out to the football field. And they have like an army of volunteers. Most are alum, many are faculty. And each person, I think Morgan's wearing her pin today, takes one of these little pins and pins it on the young person and says, "Welcome to Howard University." The power of that, the power of doing one small thing that makes a young person know that you see them, when so often in their lives, nobody sees them, right? And so with the work that you do, one of the things I really appreciate about Salome is she's always talking about how the work that you do can help reduce disparities and help improve health equity, mental health equity. And part of improving mental health equity is ensuring that in what we do, every young person we encounter feels seen by our work. It's not just the surface stuff. Don't just have nice pictures of rainbow of people and somebody got rainbow hair, right, and they might have a pin on. Don't just do that. That it is deeply embedded in everything that you do. And I know many of you already strive to do that kind of work. And so just listening to Morgan give this example, it reminds me of how important it is to actively, I'm always talking about active coping with young people, but to actively engage in behaviors and activities that let people know you appreciate them. So my hope is that while you're out there mingling, I'll give you an example. This generation, Gen Z, they're not shy. I'm Gen X, so when I would go to these meetings, I hated them because I always felt like I didn't belong in these meetings, right? I always felt like these people, maybe some of these people know more than me. They did, some didn't. That, nobody's really here to talk to me. I got to make the effort to go talk to people. So my hope is that part of the inclusivity that will happen as a part of this meeting is you will find somebody out there who you would never normally speak to, especially these young people, our young innovators, and speak to them. That's the kind of stuff that improves people's mental health, right, is the human connection. Us taking an active role in partnering with, listening to, engaging with our young people. So Morgan, I want to ask you a little bit about this idea of, I don't know, for me it's like connection and being self-possessed and having that self-esteem and knowing that you are seen, that you are heard, that you are valued. And I want to talk about something that not a lot of people in our community who are African American do, and that's a bridge year, the college bridge year between high school and college. And I would love to hear a little bit about, Morgan did that, that's why I bring it up. I would love to hear a little bit about why you made that choice and how that choice, if it was good for your mental health and emotional well-being.
So I'm going to ask a question first, and please be honest. How many of you felt fully prepared to go off to college, whether it was near or far from home, once you graduated high school?
Felt ready?
Yeah, felt ready. Okay. Exactly. But how many of you actually had to go straight into college or straight into a career path directly after you graduated? Yes. So I will preface by saying that I'm fortunate enough to be able to have taken a gap year and been in a position where I could kind of give myself time, and I had parents who supported that decision very clearly and very quickly. So for me, I graduated in 2022. And I knew that I thought I was ready for college. I felt like I had some of the things, the concepts down, like I was independent. I love school, so I was ready to do that. But being away from home, even though Howard is 30 minutes from home, is something that was I was not prepared to do it. So taking the gap year was really special for me because I know that I am an anxious person, and being at college directly after high school was not going to be beneficial for me. So I probably would have struggled my first year had I gone last year. And I think the big thing for me was taking that year, I was able to intern part-time for the AAKOMA project. And I emphasize part-time because having done a full-time job probably would not have been beneficial because I wouldn't have taken the break that I needed between being so involved in high school. I was the varsity tennis captain, I was president of multiple clubs, I did the International Baccalaureate program, so there were all these things that I was super involved in, starting from junior year all the way to the end.
And can I just interject one thing too that you're not saying?
Yes.
I won't embarrass you, I promise. This is not an
Okay.
embarrassing thing. The thing that she's not saying that is relevant for our work is the emotional toll of being a lonely only, right? So the high school that she went to was very diverse. It was the second most diverse. There are 3 high schools in the county where we're from. And one, not diverse at all. And that's where she started, and it was a nightmare for me as a parent. She might not agree with that, but it was really hard. The second one, my spouse worked at for a while. He's a math professor. Is super diverse, right? It's diverse socioeconomically, it's diverse racially, and then there's the one that she went to, which is a little bit of both. And so I think what she's not talking about that I, as a parent caregiver, saw, and that you all can be helpful with in the work that you do, is really naming the emotional toll of what it means to be by yourself and to feel isolated, right? And lots of our young people have that experience. It's not just around race. It can be around having an LGBTQAI plus identity. It could be around having a disability. It could be around a combination of being a young person of color, having a disability, and or being part of the queer community. And so, again, as a Gen Xer, we didn't talk about it. It was kind of suck it up, right? Everybody got to go through. You got to go through it too. But I think what's important for this generation is that they're willing to say, no, I don't have to go through that. And I'm gonna need y'all older adults to do something to help us out. So I just wanted to name the part about what I saw you having to carry day to day, even though it was a racially and socioeconomically diverse school. She was in the IB program, and most of y'all already know what I'm gonna say. The IB program was not diverse, right? And so even in the midst of that diverse environment, which we were intentional about, because you had to apply, that's another thing, you had to apply to go to that school. If you didn't live in the zone, you get in the school and it's still somewhat segregated, right? So you're still having those challenges. And those emotional challenges, I think, take as much of a toll on young people's mental health as all the activities and leadership and the crazy amount of academic work that you had to do took as well. So I just wanted to throw that part in there, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I will reiterate, I emphasize that I worked part-time for my internship because the break that I needed was not going to be fully useful if I was still working myself really hard for 35, 40 hours a week as an 18-year-old freshly out of high school. So I worked part-time, I loved it, I got to see all the different aspects of what it means to run a business, I got to travel, I got to do all these things that I love. And I think the big thing for me was once I left, I started at maybe 9 in the morning, ended at 1 or 2 o'clock. So I had the rest of the evening to do what I wanted. And I'm pretty independent, so I'm fine being by myself. I will sit in my apartment now. Saturdays are my quiet days. Don't talk to me, I don't want to hear it. I'm fine having that time for long periods of time alone. So having that time in the afternoons when all my friends were at school and kind of hearing what they were going through was something that I got to sit back and really kind of appreciate that I was home with people who supported me, cared about me, were going to be a part of my journey for the rest of my life and support the decisions that I made. And I think the big thing for my mental health was, as an anxious person, having that time and knowing that in August, I wasn't going to be packing up my room. And by August 21st, I wasn't going to be fully moved out. None of my stuff was at home. When I came home on the weekends or when I came home for break, my room was going to be empty. I had the reassurance that every night or every afternoon when I came home, I would get to see my dad, see my brother, see my mom, see my grandfather, see my dogs, and feel comfortable and confident in the decision that not going to school, feeling unprepared and anxious was something that I had to deal with, because now I get to go to school every day, and yeah, people are like, oh, what's your classification, all of that, but I get to say I took a gap year because I needed it, And it really allowed me the time to grow and be who I am now, prepared to be on campus, embrace the opportunities that I've been given, and walk through campus confidently, knowing that the decision I made last year, how I'm able to walk around now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Morgan. So I don't know, somebody give me a time check when you get a second. Hold up your hands or something. How much? Is it on there?
Yes.
Oh, you can see it. How much time do we have left?
13 and a half seconds. I think 13 and a half minutes.
Oh, rock and roll. Thank you. Thank you. I can't see that. Oh, right there. Wow. Okay. Ooh, child, if I was naked, would have bit me. Okay.
Glasses are right there.
I'm so sorry. So I want to pivot a little bit, just a little bit. I want to shift into this idea, and I say love, light, science. We're going to shift a little bit into this conversation that I'm framing around light. And what I would love to hear is you've talked about you did a bridge year and you worked for the AAKOMA project. You did a whole bunch of stuff. We won't stay there. I want to talk about how you took the lessons learned, opportunities gained from working at a multiracial, multi-ethnic, woman of color-led org that focuses on young people, diverse backgrounds. How did you take those lessons with you into the current work that you do? So it's like pitch for you to knock it out of the park and talk to our audience about the advocacy that you do in mental health now. You're with a couple of organizations, and could you talk a little bit about that, why it's important to you, and what you hope to be able to accomplish through doing that mental health advocacy work as an HBCU student, because I don't want to forget that part.
Yeah, so I will name two big ones that I had the opportunity to start working with during my gap year and then kind of go into it. So I am fortunate enough to serve on a youth council with one of my co-members, Jorge here, that is sponsored by MTV Entertainment and Active Minds. And with these two organizations, we are working to create strategies and a tool that helps people kind of have the stop, drop, and roll of mental health care. If you are not someone who has a background in it, then this is for you. If you are someone who has more than 20 years of experience, it's for you. It's a simple way for you to be able to support the loved ones and the people around you when they may be dealing with something. And then I also had the opportunity to be in a Dove campaign last year called The Real Cost of Beauty, where I spoke about my experiences growing up in non-diverse environments and speaking about how I was able to kind of cope and get through that and how I am now flourishing because of those negative experiences that I turned into positives. And during my time doing all of that, I was still speaking with my mentor from high school, and I was convinced that I wanted to work during college. And he was like, Morgan, why do you want to work? You don't need to work. You are about to be first year on campus. Just bask in that. And I kept saying, no, I need to work, I need to work. And he finally said, why? You are feeding into something where because you are a young black woman and you don't see many examples around you, you feel the need to work yourself almost too hard to make sure that you are meeting standards and doing things that no one is setting for you, you're kind of placing on yourself. And I think after hearing that and hearing him basically tell me that I'm opting to have a struggle that I don't need to have, it really kind of made me go into a deep dive about what is it that I'm seeing now that I've graduated, now that I'm still kind of mentoring some of the girls that I was tennis captain above. How am I going to help them? Because they look up to me. I was one of two black girls on my tennis team, so it was kind of me and a girl 2 years younger than me, so I kind of took her under my wing. And I think the big thing for me with advocacy and why I'm in the work is, one, I've been around it since I was, born? But it's also like, as I've had experiences, as I've grown, as I've seen the people around me kind of struggle with things that I've known how to deal with front and firsthand, that they didn't have the opportunity to have those resources, I am all about not just helping young girls of color, but really helping everyone figure out what are the tools that I can use as a young person, especially in that middle school, high school age, to help myself feel prepared and ready to go into different situations that I may not have felt prepared for and that I may not have had anyone else give me tools for. Because a lot of people around my age don't have those opportunities and they don't have those resources. And that's not because they don't want them. It's because maybe their environment isn't allowing for them to have them, or it's that the people around them don't know how to fully help them. So being able to say that I have those tools, I have those resources, I'm someone who has firsthand experience and can provide relevant and beneficial advice from a marginalized background, and having those experiences is something that I'm really passionate about. And now being at Howard and being able to talk about those things, sharing it on campus, doing presentations in the School of Business and in Crampton and around campus has been something that's really important to me, because I know that there are still people on my campus who don't have those tools and those resources, and they're actively looking for them. So being able to say that I at least put something out on social media, or I said something to a dean, or I said something to a vice president, and maybe that'll be shared campus-wide, is something that's really important to me.
I love that. One thing that you said, and then we're going to pivot to our last section, that really resonates with me is this idea of, I think for a lot of people with marginalized identities, I think we engage in this behavior. And you and I having these kinds of conversations really help me to see it. And so I just feel so compelled to talk about it. And the concept is that we don't talk about often in mental health, behavioral health, is this idea of striving and being like an overachiever to compensate for racism and discrimination, all different kinds of discrimination. Because if I'm perfect, if I'm stay later than everybody else, if I come in earlier than everybody else, if I'm always on time, which I am not ever, but if I'm always on time, or if I'm always the one with the right answer, if I'm always the first one to the meeting, the last one to leave, people will be nice to me and they won't discriminate. And I'm here to tell you that ain't true. Because discrimination, it's important for me to say this to anybody with a marginalized identity. Discrimination is not about you. It's about the other person. Because the other person is making a choice, right? So please, never in your life again, please, just take this little teeny bit of wisdom. Never say that somebody did something to you because of insert the blank about yourself. Because I'm a woman, because I'm black, because I'm tall, because I'm dark-skinned. It's not any of those things. Those things are all true about me, but that's not why people make the choices that they make, right? It's not about me, it's about them. It's because a person is sexist, because a person is racist, because a person has different biases. That's why they do it, right? And I think it's important for young people to hear those messages, because it alleviates the challenges that they face in thinking that they did something wrong. Sometimes we do stuff wrong, right? But that's not why discrimination happens. So I feel like it's really important to highlight that with the fine point for our young people, because this idea of striving, if I just do more. The first time I ever heard it was this brother named Dr. Gerard Mason, who's a professor at UVA in the counseling center. And he said kids would come in, young people, and would just be falling apart, like clearly in the throes of a major depressive episode. But they the president of the Greek Association, right? They the president of the Virginia Club or the DC Club or wherever they were from. They were on all these committees and couldn't get their academic work done, but they were doing all this stuff. We used to have this thing that I learned about when I was at Duke in the Department of Psychiatry for many years called effortless perfection. So if there are any Dukies in here, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? And the most colloquial way I can say it is Beyonce, I woke up like this, right? Like all perfect. No, you didn't. But that's the idea. I don't study before I take tests, but they hiding in the stacks so they don't want you to see that they're studying. Because the idea is I need to look like this is easy, right? And so these are the kinds of insidious things that creep into our young people's psyche and really weigh them down. And if we don't account for those things by addressing the widest range and greatest diversity of needs that we can think of as we're creating evidence. I say evidence informed. Don't beat me up. I am a scientist. I know what I'm talking about. This is my opinion. I'm an N of one. I say evidence informed and not evidence based. Because evidence informed allows for inclusion of all of us. Evidence based sort of means it's settled. And we know what the data looks like. Often the diversity that we saw in the first presentation of our young innovators, that's not there. So at AAKOMA, we say evidence-informed. So the final thing, that's a nice pivot to the last couple of minutes, is to talk a little bit about this concept of science. So did you have any questions that you wanted to ask me, Ms. Morgan?
Sure. I was lucky enough to help facilitate the May event that AAKOMA put on called The State of Mental Health of Youth of Color. And you had over 1,000, I think 3,000 people surveyed. And as a parent and someone who's been in the research and data field for over 25 years, can you speak a little bit about what you found from both we got 3 minutes, so I'm gonna say 3 key takeaways that you took from the data you found as a parent, 1 as a parent, and then 2 as a psychologist?
Yes, so 3 things quickly, and then I want you to have the last word. 1 was, if you ask nicely, people will respond. A lot of times in the scientific field, we say, well, we can't find insert group X. They don't respond. That's not true. It's the way that we ask. So if we ask nicely, we can get people to respond. The second thing is our survey included 2,906 young people, and we broke our young people up into self-identified racial ethnic categories. We had Black African American, we had Native American Indigenous, we had Latino, Latina, Latinx, we had Asian American Pacific Islander, and then we had young people who identified as multiracial. Relatively equal sample sizes. That's the second takeaway. It's important for us to move above and beyond representative samples, right? Because representative samples means that less than 3% of your sample might be AAPI, and you're talking about dozens of different ethnic groups under the label of AAPI, right? Your sample might be, as we typically see, 13, 14% Latino, Latina, Latinx, 13, 14% Black, and then is typically what we see is everybody's mushed into other. Other is not a racial category. And then the third thing as a parent is that it's important just to have the data, to be able to send someone to our website where all that data is listed so that they can look and pinpoint and say, oh, that's what my child is struggling with, right? So in our data, we found that over 50% of the young people we surveyed between the ages of 12 and 25 were struggling. In the prior 7 days, we used the same surveys that the CDC uses so we could compare our findings. We're struggling with symptoms of anxiety and depression, like 53, 52% in both of those categories. So those are 3 things I learned. So I appreciate the question. Please go look at the State of Mental Health of Youth of Color on the AAKOMA Project website, akomaproject.org. Download it, share it. We're gonna do the next iteration in 2024. We're doing it every other year. And there's some other briefs and reports on there as well. And we're gonna put out, hopefully, we get it together, for Indigenous History Month, Heritage Month, we're gonna put out a report specific to that population of young people as well. So Morgan, I wanna thank you. I wanna thank Salome and her whole team for giving us the opportunity to have this discussion. I wanna thank you for your time and attention. And I wanna ask you if you have any parting words under the theme of Flame of Hope, igniting change in youth mental health with wit and wisdom and beauty.
You have to ask me in 5 minutes because I cannot work on the fly like that. But I will say thank you, everyone, for listening. This is something that I'm grateful to be able to talk about, especially from the perspective of being a student who is in a space that is representative of who I am, where I want to be. I have the connections that I want, the networking opportunities, being able to be here, see all these faces. So thank you. Yeah.
All right, and then I'm gonna take the last one, I'll steal it from something that you said. Remember, please, her words, every young person, right, this is what we say at AAKOMA, deserves the right to live unapologetically and authentically as the best version of themselves. So thank y'all so much. Thank you, Morgan.